Hi, everybody. Welcome to Brunch with Boston Buddies. We have two very special guests with us today from an organization called Minding Your Mind. We have Michelle, who is the regional director of the New England chapter of Minding Your Mind. And then we also have Elizabeth, who is a speaker for Minding Your Mind. She's going to be speaking with us today and telling us about her experience with the organization. So welcome to Boston Buddies and Brunch.
Thank you.
So Michelle, can you start us out and let us know what Minding Your Mind is all about?
Sure. So Minding Your Mind is a mental health education foundation. So we're a nonprofit that is focused on ending the stigma around mental health challenges and conditions and encouraging people to reach out for help. And we got started in Philadelphia over 10 years ago and really wanted to make sure that students had the information that they need to understand that if they were struggling, it's okay to reach out for help, because there wasn't the information presented to them. There was a lot of stuff going on for adults, but there wasn't for students, and we wanted to reach them before they were struggling. So we started off with just one young adult speaker and our founder who felt like this was really important and was really committed to it. And in our first year, we did about 35 presentations to students in schools and communities around Philadelphia, and now we've expanded. So like you said, I'm the New England director, so we have an office in Philadelphia, we have one in New Jersey, and one in the greater Boston area, serving all of the communities within that footprint and beyond, providing programs to students, and we've expanded to providing programs for parents, teachers, and we've also started doing a corporate program as well. So we're really excited to be here and tell you more about the kind of work that we're doing and introduce you to one of our wonderful young adult speakers like Elizabeth.
That's great. And I can attest that, yes, I was chatting with you earlier and I was telling my daughter about this, and yes, you guys did a presentation at her high school in January, and it did leave an impression. She did remember.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that. I think one of the things that we're really proud of is that we have had this expanded reach. So in doing our 1,500 presentations this year, we're on track to reach our 1 millionth person. Obviously, with COVID and everything that's gone on, we've had to shift what that looks like, but we're still out there spreading the message around ending the stigma around mental health and really encouraging people to reach out for help. And, you know, before it used to be reach out to your guidance counselor or a therapist, but now we've got new ways to reach out to these people through telehealth and online support groups. And there's a lot of services out there. So we just want people to speak up and not suffer in silence.
Yep. And what are you seeing right now as the impact from the COVID-19 on the mental health for students and adults during this time?
You know, I think the overarching theme of what we're hearing about is grief. So for a lot of students, we can really understand their struggle around grief if they are no longer able to experience a graduation like they had been planning. Like Elizabeth, our speaker here, was going to graduate this year and was really looking forward to walking across the stage, and now she can't do that. So there's all different ways that we're seeing the grief is looking for our youth and for our families, but the amount of stress that everyone is under is really, really hard for folks. Whether your family is somebody who has an essential worker, or you've lost somebody due to coronavirus, or somebody's been laid off, or it's just parents who are trying to figure out how do you do work and be a homeschooling parent, and
Right.
kids are trying to figure out how do you do all of that as well. So we're seeing a big rise in anxiety and depression. And one of the things that we are anticipating is that once all of this is over and we start going back to life as normal, we're going to see huge amounts of anxiety and PTSD with our kids. We also know that in 2008, with the financial crisis, at that time, we saw an increase in the rise in suicide. And so at Minding Your Mind, we're really mindful that we may see those same rises again with people who are really struggling from the economic impact of what's going on, combined with mental health. So anxiety, depression, grief, those are the big things that we're trying to address.
Yeah, that's my daughter's a senior in high school too. So yeah, she's going through that grief right now because they canceled her prom. They usually do a Disney trip. They canceled that, and no graduation. They already canceled graduation. It's hard as a parent because I can't understand. I don't understand truly what she's going through, but I know that it's difficult on those kids. It's a shame.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth, ask you. So first, I guess, how did you find Minding Your Mind? And give us a little background around how you joined the organization.
Yeah, so I'm Elizabeth. I'm one of the young adult speakers with Minding Your Mind. And I was looking for a way to share my story because I think that a couple things. I think it's really important that people know they're not alone, students especially. And I think if I had heard something like my story when I was younger, it may have encouraged me to reach out for help sooner. And that's one of our whole goals at Minding Your Mind, right, is to um, encourage people to access treatment, access healing more quickly, and to break down the stigma. So I actually was very serendipitous. I saw a flyer at my school. I'm a social work student right now. That was saying that Minding Your Mind was looking for a local speaker, and I thought, yeah, I'll give this a whirl. Maybe I'll meet some cool people out of it. And I went through a very thorough speaker training process with Michelle and one of the other clinical staff in the New England office. And it was really exciting when they told me I could start speaking. So yeah, it was kind of a funny little way I found them through a flyer.
That's great though. It's great to see the younger people, actually doing this, because I think you'll be able to relate a lot more with the kids, and maybe it'll help them reach out sooner rather than if it was me up there with gray hair.
That's the idea, right? It's like a near peer model of
right.
Sharing our stories.
Right. I haven't heard that term, but that's correct. Near peer. I like that. Yeah. So what are you doing these days for like self-care and coping mechanisms with everything that's going on? You're obviously affected by this. You're supposed to be graduating yourself, as they said. So what are you doing for yourself?
So I'm definitely leaning into so I'm a member of a 12-step program, 12-step fellowship, and I'm using the fellowship a lot, calling other people who are in the program and going to virtual meetings. That's absolutely keeping me sane.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also really, really lucky to still be working. I'm a nanny right now, and I get to go every day to hang out with my kids. And that's like, you have to be present when you're with kids. And I get to do art. I get to take bike rides with them. I get to get cuddles. So I'm very lucky in the sense that I've still had kind of a routine to rely on.
Right.
Yeah.
You still have that you're physically near each other too, which helps. Yeah. I do think that this not being physical with people, it does affect people in negative ways. I see it with my daughter. She's my little one, my 4-year-old, and this is 7 weeks we're going on, and she's had no contact with anybody her own age at all.
It's tough.
And yeah, earlier I was watching her, and she was down there with her iPad, because they're doing like a little reading stories and stuff, and she's sitting there in her tent eating her lunch, just watching a video, and I was like, she needs more than that. It's such a shame.
Yeah.
So,
especially at that age, it's really important.
Right. Like, no, this is unprecedented. Like, who knows what's going to happen? Hopefully this is over soon, but if this continues on for a long time, who knows how this will affect. I don't know, but I worry about my little one and what this is going to do and how it's going to affect her in the longer term.
Absolutely.
Hopefully not, but who knows? So you were an athlete as well, right, Elizabeth? Can you tell me a little bit about your connection between like athletics and the connection to like the mental health struggles?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. So I grew up involved in a number of extracurricular activities, and one that really stuck with me was running. I loved to run. That was my favorite part of soccer. And so when it became an opportunity for me to join a running team through my middle school, I was really excited about that. So I joined the cross country and track and field teams. And it was really, at first, a really, really, really great opportunity for me to both have like a physical outlet, something physical to do besides school. But it was also a great coping skill because I was experiencing some stress in my life at that point. And so I really used running to to cope with things. It was a great coping skill at first. But it pretty quickly for me turned into something that wasn't working, because kind of a theme in my story, when I share my story with students, one of the big themes I talk about is, since I was young, I've always had this really overwhelming need for control and perfection. And this has caused a lot of anxiety in my life. And so I think that that running for me became excessive. I was doing it too much. I was working out too much. And it also became compulsive. So it wasn't healthy anymore for me. It became like something I felt guilty if I wasn't doing. And whenever I wasn't running or exercising, that's all I could think about. I actually ended up going into treatment for an eating disorder in the first year of high school. And I needed to change in that moment. I really needed to change my relationship with exercise because it had started as a positive coping skill for me, and it had morphed into something that felt like a chore and felt really difficult. And, there were a lot of negative thoughts associated with it. So I didn't participate in team athletics in high school because I wasn't able to do it, but I got really into yoga. And so lately, I guess from college on, the way that I've engaged in athletics or physical activity looks a lot different from when I was a kid and when I was in middle school doing a lot of team sports. So now for me, it's weightlifting, which I feel is really empowering to me. And it's yoga. I've tried to go back to running, and for me, it's not something right now that I'm able to get back into with a healthier relationship. But maybe one day I will be.
Yoga is great. I love yoga. I found yoga. I had an injury and I couldn't run. I had a plantar fasciitis, so I couldn't really run for about 3 months. And I took up yoga, and I was going about three days a week. To hot yoga, where it's got 110 degrees in the room, and you do. But I loved it. It actually kept me in shape. I probably was in better shape from that than just from the running, because it was a full body workout, and I loved it. I loved it. And now, especially now when people are homebound, it's something that you can do. There's plenty of yoga videos online. We actually had one of our members do a live yoga session yesterday.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yoga's great. So stick with it.
Yes, it works. It works for me.
Yeah. So is there anything that surprised you regarding the getting the therapy that you found? Was there anything that actually you were like, oh, this really, I never thought of this, or this really changed my perspective on things that you wouldn't have thought of maybe, or you wouldn't have had that perspective without going through the therapy?
Yeah. So I started therapy when I was, I think, 12. And I've learned a lot of different things throughout my experiences in therapy. And I've also done some more structured treatment programs. I was in an inpatient program for the overexercising and eating disorder for a little over a year. But I think one of the things related to the overexercising and the restrictive eating that I learned is that sometimes we're fed this rhetoric in culture that we need to eat clean, and we need to eat a certain way and count calories, and that we need to exercise a certain way. And this way of living usually has the mask of wellness on it. And I think for someone like me, certainly, who has had traditionally a very difficult time occupying the gray area of life, I'm either black or white, working on it though. I can't do wellness without bringing it into what culture calls wellness, without bringing it into a dangerous, an eating disorder for me. So what I learned is that I need to be really aware of what culture is telling me, what society is telling me, versus what I need, what my body needs, what my mind needs, And oftentimes they're different, right? I don't need to do the bikini workout, do a short-term crash diet, because it's not going to stop there for me. So that's one of the biggest things I've learned, is to be really cautious of how I read media, how I read what society feeds me, and what I do with the information I get. Because I do think there is, sometimes we see the extreme athletes, or we see wellness culture. And I wonder if the people who are engaging in it are happy, because I wouldn't be. So.
Right. Yes. When I first started working, I was, when you start corporate jobs, they always give you reviews and stuff like that. And I was told the same thing about black or white. That I was always black or white. It was one or the other. There's no in between. And
yes.
I've learned over the years that it's probably best to sit in between. And you figure it out eventually, but it takes some time. I've been, I'm a lot older than you, but it took me a while. But you'll figigure it out as long as you recognized it early in life. So you'll figure it out.
Yeah. I was talking actually to my therapist, and I was doing like a Zoom call with my therapist the other day. And I told her, I said, I can't figure out if I love this quarantine or I absolutely hate it. And she was like, well, there's another possibility. Those aren't the only two options.
Right.
And it kind of reminded me like, oh yeah, I need to get out of that thinking like there's some great things I can get from it and some things that kind of suck. So. Right.
Exactly. And every day you might think differently. You might think it's great one day and it's not the next day, and that's okay.
Exactly.
The thing that we are always talking about, not just with what's going on now, but always, is making lemons out of lemonade. There's always some way to make something positive out of this. Like we once we found out about the marathon being postponed, we were planning on doing a virtual one, but we really started promoting the virtual run, and we did a virtual run the weekend that the marathon was supposed to be, and we ended up raising a lot of money for charity that weekend. So it was like everybody still wanted to run, everybody wanted to race, so we got medals made and everything. So it's like we kind of just made lemons out of lemonade, and we helped a good cause in the process. Now, something that I just learned right before this, which I know that all of our listeners are going to want to hear about, is you went to Wellesley, and you were one of the women that lined the course and the part of the Scream Tunnel. So
yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know that there's like a Facebook group dedicated to the women that do this, and like you guys are making signs and stuff like that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, so I'll just say to start, my years at Wellesley were I'm not that old, but they're some of the best of my life. I loved being there. And one of the greatest things was that there were a lot of traditions, and being part of those traditions that have been happening for years and years and years at a college is really powerful. You realize what an important legacy you're a part of, how many really, really inspiring and powerful women came before you. And so I was really excited to throw myself into all these traditions. But the Marathon Monday, the Scream Tunnel tradition, is so unique. It's because people prepare for it. We prepare for weeks. We make our signs. We get, we figure things out that like, what are we going to say on our signs? How are we going to decorate them? Are we going to do face paint? Or where are we going to stand? What time do we have to get there so we can get the seats we want, or the standing spots we want? And it's just, the whole atmosphere is so much fun. We love seeing all the runners come, and they always seem so excited to see us too. But it's just like, those days were among my favorites. It was always tough the next day to wake up and hit the ground running again with class, but man, I love Marathon Monday.
Right. That's what we say in our group. It's almost like Christmas Day, Marathon Monday. It's Christmas again, and then the next day is the day after Christmas is always the saddest day of the year.
So true. So true. Yeah.
But yeah, we have a lot of members that like that love your section. I always say I love, Wellesley's my favorite part of the course, for obvious reasons.
I mean, of course, right? We my favorite is when people there was one year in particular that I felt like a whole group of people were doing, they had written like the Wellesley W on their stomachs, and someone had like the Wellesley W on their cheeks, and it was just so fun to see people get excited. And they film us, which is so funny. It's like, why are you filming us? You guys are the ones doing this cool big thing.
I did. I filmed when I ran through in 2018 was the year that it was really, really rainy and like the horrible weather. So I filmed going through. I think that love that. That was my record year. I think I got 18 kisses that year.
Look at you. Yeah. Whoa. 18 for 2018.
That's, that should be my goal. I got to get the number of kisses as whatever year it is. That's a good idea.
I like that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, we certainly appreciate the girls of Wellesley and what you guys do. And for the first timers, they don't even realize what's coming, because you can hear it a half a mile away. All the screams, and it just pumps you up and gets you ready to go.
That's awesome. That's good to hear.
Although I will say that in 2014, I was probably in some of the best shape of my life, and my goal was to break 3 hours at the marathon. Mm-hmm. And I was right on pace. And then I got the Wellesley. And if you look at my splits, my time in Wellesley was about 10 seconds slower than my other miles. And I missed breaking 3 hours by 8 seconds. So I blame the girls of Wellesley for me not getting it here.
It's definitely like a social part of the marathon, I feel like.
Right. Yeah. And people love it. And it's great. You see guys and girls running along the side, kissing everybody in the step. I just hope and pray we can get back to that someday.
Someday soon, I hope.
Yeah. Who knows what will happen this year, but maybe next year we'll be able to partake in the festivities again.
Hopefully. Yeah.
So that's great. I appreciate you sharing your story and stuff. And it's 1 o'clock now. I want to be mindful of your time if you need to go back to work.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much, though. I really appreciate you having me and also having Minding Your Mind, because it's a really important organization, and I'm so proud to be a young adult speaker with them. So. Well,
I appreciate what you're doing, and I think there's a lot of kids probably that you don't realize that you're touching their lives and they're going to help them. And you know what? In probably 10, 15 years, they might come back into your life and say, "Hey, you actually saved me. I was going down the path and you saved me." So you're doing some really great work. So thank you.
Thank you.
So Michelle, can you hang out?
Sign off. Thanks, guys.
Right. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Bye, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much. Bye.
She's great.
Stay, Vince, for as long as you'd like me to.
Sure, great. So I guess what can people do today to try and help support your mission?
I think there's a couple of different things. I do want to talk about some of the ways that we've sort of shifted what our work looks like. So traditionally, we've worked, like I said, with schools, and we've gone in and presented to students. That's not really an option for us right now. So we have shifted, and we've created this parent program. So if somebody feels like they want to bring a parent program to their community, we would be happy to do that. It's called Teens, Tweens, and Quarantines. It's all about how do you support your teens and tweens particularly to get through this really difficult time. And I imagine that we'll be adjusting that as we get further along. Like going back to school is going to be a real issue. So we'll probably have a new presentation around how to prepare your children for going back to school. Mm-hmm. One of the other ways that we've pivoted is to really provide a more comprehensive program for corporations. So if your company is looking for some sort of programming for employees around stress reduction, around managing the work-life balance, around mindfulness, we have a program that does that. And I think it's a really wonderful one. And we've seen it take off. I mean, I'm really impressed by the companies who have brought us in to do this, because they really are committed to their employees' wellness and trying to figure it out in this very difficult time what to do. Mm-hmm. Thing that we're going to be launching on Friday. So for those of you who are educators out there or working with youth, we have a new platform. It's a teacher platform that provides all sorts of activities and handouts and things that you can use with students from afar. But it also has a panel of our young adult speakers talking about what they're doing right now. So historically, someone like Elizabeth, she would go in and she would talk about her story, but kind of starting from the beginning. But I feel like when we're talking to youth right now, we need to talk about right now. What can they do right now to get through these difficult times? So we have a young adult speaker webinar that is moderated by one of our clinicians talking about what coping skills they're using and how the viewers, so the students, teens and tweens, can start to develop some for themselves. So those are really the primary ways: our parent program, our corporate program, our teacher platform. Of course, if anybody wants to donate, they're always welcome to. You know. And then just keep an eye out on our social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, I don't even know, everything else you can possibly imagine. One thing to keep an eye out for your folks particularly, we do participate in a lot of races. So we've had people who run for us in the New York Marathon. We're really hoping to get into the Boston Marathon, and the Wharton 5K. So anybody who wants to run a race on behalf of Minding Your Mind, we love that. And we will be out there holding our signs and cheering you on as you do so.
Do you do the Philly Marathon?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We love races. We think it's so great. And, you know, like Elizabeth was saying, exercise is such an important part of coping for so many people. And, you know, it sounds like from what I've heard, a lot of people who do start running are starting to run because they need to get out. They need to get outside and do something for whatever those reasons are. And we love running clubs. We think they're amazing. And we're so happy to be able to talk to your group about it.
Yeah. I hope you stick around in the Boston Buddies now that you know who we are.
Yeah, well, and you know, I didn't mention it earlier, but our office in the greater Boston area is in Newton. And so I'm right on the carriageway in Newton, which is part of the marathon route. So I go out every year with my signs and I scream, and I don't kiss anybody because that's for the Wellesley area. I am there rain or shine. And I was so disappointed that it was canceled this year, but I will be there in the fall.
That's great. No. Well, if I run by you, I'm going to give you a kiss.
All right, I might have my mask on because we want to be, you know, safe and healthy.
Okay. So you were talking about some of the webinars for teachers, but pretty much everybody who's a parent right now is a teacher. Like, can the parents join those webinars as well to kind of get some? Basically, they need to start their own course curriculum. I know my district really wasn't ready for this, so it was kind of disorganized.
Yeah. And I think what you're talking about is what we're seeing across the country is that some schools were able to really shift and get it taken care of quickly. Some schools have not been able to focus on education because their communities really need to focus on basic needs. And so maybe they're working on how do we make sure that our kids have access to food regularly? And that's the focus. And that makes sense to be the focus. So because it's been so across the board, we've been trying to provide resources in any way that we can reach all people through all mediums, obviously while being safe around it. So the information that we have for teachers, certainly parents are welcome to access it. But we do have a lot of resources on our website. So if you go to mindingyourmind.org, it just pops right up in the front and it's our virtual resources. So there's guides to how to access therapy, recovery groups, mindfulness activities, things that are locally based, things that are national. And I think it's a great opportunity for parents to go and start to figure out what it is that they might need. There's so much information out there that I think, you know, parents are really overwhelmed and where do I turn? So I would say start there. And then that will take you down a path that might be helpful.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I have 3 daughters, and the one I think that's probably most affected is the one I was saying is a senior in high school, and she's basically lost everything. She lost her prom, she lost her school trip, she lost graduation, and I really don't know how to like make her feel better, or like as a parent, you know, I kind of feel powerless. So it's like, what can you say to parents that have children in the same situation?
Yeah, you know, I think it's really important that even though we can't be in that moment and we don't know exactly what it feels like to be missing out, that we acknowledge how sad these times are for them. And we simply say, I'm sorry, this is really hard, and be available to go through that grieving process with them. I think it's also important that we acknowledge those days when it happens, instead of trying to just ignore that today would have been the day of the school play or the day where you would have announced to your school what college you're going to go to. we want to still celebrate those, even if it's in small ways, like doing it here on a Zoom call or a Facebook Live call with family members, or even just having maybe a celebratory breakfast. Or, everybody's way of celebrating right now is going to look really different. But most important things that parents can do is acknowledge that what their child is going through is real and it's hard, and that you are there for them, and ask them what they need from you.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. I've got a 4-year-old, and her birthday's on Sunday. So the birthday party obviously isn't happening. So what we're doing is she wanted to see her friends. So the friends are going to be lined up at their windows. We're going to do a drive-by and drive around the street so she can see her friends.
Yeah. That's really great. It's different, of course, right? It's not the big party with the favors and, whatever else you were going to do, but it's a different kind of party to celebrate.
Yeah, our local firehouse is also allowing, like, you can call the firehouse and they'll do a drive-by and play the sirens and stuff for your kid's birthday and stuff like that.
That's really sweet. I feel like everybody's trying to be creative and figure out how they can help others at this time. It's really amazing to see how communities are coming together.
Yeah, I agree. We'll get through it. We don't have a choice. We're going to get through it. And
Yes.
Sometimes we'll come out on the other end. I'm sure we will come out on the other end somewhat better, because we figured out some things that we wouldn't have if we weren't challenged like we are right now.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think there's a lot of positive things that are going on. There's a lot of kindness in the world. There's a lot of humor in the world right now, and those are all okay. As well as what you were talking about with Elizabeth, some days are good, some days are bad, and some moments are good and some moments don't feel so good. And those are all okay.
Right, it just is. That's one thing I didn't know as a kid, is things just are.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Everything's not going to be perfect. And I'm glad I didn't grow up in this time where basically everything is on social media and kids have a lot of pressure to say, or to at least appear that everything's okay. And normally when you're a teenager, it's not okay, or you don't realize what's going on in the world.
Yeah, I think you touch upon a really important point, right? Is that we as adults know that we can get through difficult times because we've gotten through them before. So we have that worldview, that we have the skills, the resources, things will get better. I think for our kids, they don't have as much life experience and the resources internally to understand that. And so I think that's also why the grief is so much bigger for them in some ways, or so different for them, because they have probably never experienced a challenge like this before. One of the positives of what I think is coming out of this is that, when our organization started over 10 years ago, people were not talking about mental health in the way that they have been in the last couple of years and in the way that they are now. Everyone is talking about the importance of mental health. So I'm hoping that one of the silver linings of all of this is the stigma around struggling with mental health has really decreased substantially, so that people can talk about what's going on for them.
Yeah. Last year we did receive a bib from the Quell Foundation, which is their slogan is, they want to eliminate the stigma. That's what's on their hat. And our group does whatever we can to support the runners, but obviously charity runners as well. And it's the money that gets raised by these charity runners is astronomical. So I think there's somewhere around 30 million for Boston. London, I think he said it was $66 million.
Wow.
And all of the major marathons now have a funding arm. But our group is more than happy to help, either with raising money or raising awareness, or just being socially available for other people, so that the people that are struggling have somebody else that they can talk to. We have a lot of runners that have gone through something, and they form like their own little group based off of what tragedy they experienced. But just being able to get together and talk with somebody that's going through it, or somebody that made it through, is out on the other end of that tragedy, and is 5 years out, and you can see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I think that's one of the reasons why our group has become so tight.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a lot of bonding that can happen through shared experience, or just in having somebody who will listen to you. And we don't have to have perfect words. We're not all therapists and clinicians. All we have to do is be available. And one of our clinical directors, John Madelman, he always says, just say, tell me more. If you're not quite sure what to say, tell me more. And those are some really great words to live by. And we're so thankful that your runners and runners all over are doing so much to support nonprofits and charities. It's really amazing.
You know what? I'm going to try that on my daughter today.
Yes.
They just tell me more. Just tell me more.
That's all you, and then you have to stop, right? You say, tell me more. And then you stop, because we, as adults, sometimes we keep going, or we make a face and then they go, ugh, stop looking at me like that.
Yeah, you must know her. You must know my daughter.
I might have met a few teenagers in my day. I may have been one myself many years ago.
Well, this was great. I appreciate you coming on and telling everybody about your organization. Maybe just to recap, can you tell everybody again where to find the information?
Thank you so much. So I would say go to our Facebook page, go to our website, which is mindingyourmind.org. We have a ton of resources on there. We're on Instagram and LinkedIn. And if anybody wants to donate, like I said, we will never say no. And one thing that has happened is that so many resources are being put towards COVID-19, and that's amazing. But we're going to need a lot more resources when school are back in to support students in mental health. So we welcome your support in any way. We do have runners who run for us. We do have volunteers who help us with events. So if you're interested in getting involved, like I said, go to our website, mindingyourmind.org. We would love to have you as part of our team and part of our group.
That's great. I'm sure you'll find some runners today. Yes. All right. Well, again, thank you so much. Thanks for your patience with all the technical difficulties.
Yeah, thank you.
And I appreciate what you guys do. Tell Elizabeth again, thank you for her time. She was great. I love talking with her. Maybe we can have you all on again sometime after all of this.
We would love to. It would be so great to come back. We've loved talking with you, and we'll figure out the tech. It'll be easier next time.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.